You're listening to the Ordinary Joe's podcast with Joe D and Eric B. Ordinary Joe's podcast.
All right. We are back. Kind of an unusual podcast that we're going to do today. Valentine's Day. Joe got the red glow in the background. But we're going to talk about something. Getting festive. We talked about cryptics. We talked about UFOs. But we never talked about paranormal encounters. Ghost encounters. Something we could have done in October. I don't know why we didn't do it in October. Why don't we do it in October?
I think we had a lot going on as far as topic-wise.
Okay.
And I'll be honest with you. As much as I like talking about this stuff, part of me hates it too because I get all creeped out.
We're going to share some ghostly encounters that we had either here in San Francisco or New York, personal encounters, and then go from there. So that's what we are talking about today. Let's get this going, man. I am Eric B.
And I'm Joe D. And we are the Ordinary Joes.
It only took, 21 podcasts for us to get synced, and we're finally... We deserve a clap for that one right there.
Pros now.
Before we get started, for you guys who listened last week, we did talk about Super Bowl. We talked about Super Bowl updates. I came out victorious on my pool. Ended up winning 2 quarters. Thank you for Kansas City and Tom Brady for not scoring in the fourth quarter. For me being able to win, and that's why.
Congratulations.
I texted Joe the other day after the Super Bowl, and he said, "What happened?"
If had Kansas City kicked that last field goal quarter before the end of the second quarter, I would have got $400. That was the score that you had for the end of the game. The box I had was only for the second quarter.
Oh, so man, yeah,
just missed it. But
it's funny because we did mention that last week. How you had the different quarters, the different square. This was kind of the first time that I kind of liked the numbers not changing because it went my direction in the fourth quarters. Anyways, that was last week. That's done and over. We're talking about ghostly encounters, and Joe says he has a lot to talk about. The little scary. I don't know if that's a ghostly encounter or what sound effect that is. Joe said he had a lot, so let's go kick it off with Joe and what encounters he has. And I know New York. I don't know. New York is kind of an old town, right? So there's a lot of ghostly encounters that happen in New York. And same thing with San Francisco. For you guys who are not from San Francisco was built in the 1800s on top of graves in certain parts of San Francisco. So Joe, go ahead and kick it off and let's talk about your ghostly encounters.
Yeah. Let's just start off. My lighting is fitting. It looks like my head is just floating in there.
Should have wore all black.
So I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. Growing up, I grew up in a pretty Catholic family. My grandmother is very, very religious. I guess she would even consider herself a medium, or people would.
Wow.
For lack of a better term, she never called herself that. Like, she didn't, do seances or read people's palms or anything like that. But growing up, she claimed to, be able to see spirits and people and things like that. Oof. So, we were already kind of open, let's just say, to that sort of stuff. So when we were about 10 years old, we moved to Staten Island, and the building that we moved to is really old. I think it was built in somewhere like the late 1800s, something like that. Okay. So it was already old, old 3-story walk up. And we first, excuse me, sorry, phone's going crazy. When we first moved there, it wasn't like we saw things right away. It wasn't anything really obvious. But we started to notice, like if you sit, the way the apartment was set up, it's very long. Like if you sit in the kitchen, for instance, you can look all the way down the apartment over to the bedrooms. Okay. Right. And more often than not, you'd be sitting in the kitchen and you would swear you would see something from the corner of your eye. And when it started, it was always a girl. It was always a young, and people can believe what they want to believe. I'm just going off of what I saw, And there was one time, the first time I was sitting in the kitchen, and I thought I saw my sister walk by.
Oh, man.
And I'm like looking down the apartment, and my mom's like, "What's the matter?" And I was like, "Oh, is Maria home?" And she's like, "No." She's like, "Yes." I'm like, "Yes, she is. I just saw her." And my mom's like, "No, you didn't." I'm like, "Ma, yes, I did. I just saw her. I know what I'm seeing." And it started like that, little things like that, which I mean, is should be enough for most people.
Yeah.
But what would really scare me though was, okay, we knew about it, right? We wouldn't say anything. And when people would come over, friends, whoever, and they'd be sitting there in the kitchen, middle conversation, you always see them like,
Looking.
like, fuck, they saw something. And they're like, somebody home? Like, yeah, it's just my sister. She's in her room. Like, And that stuff, that was how it started. That was all the little things that, that I'm like, oh, man.
Wait, so was the building haunted or was was your grandmother bringing, spirits
So
in?
what she told us was that for some reason, I don't know about the rest of the building because we never really spoke to any of the neighbors about that stuff.
Yeah.
But when my grandmother told us that where we lived was sort of like a portal, or she didn't use portal, but she used another term, but like sort of like a doorway, right? It's kind of like a lot of traffic that comes in and out. Yeah. But she said as far as any like permanent residents besides us in the apartment, she said there was one older gentleman, which we were assuming was the original occupant of the apartment, because him and his family had lived there for years. And then she said another one was a young girl. And when she said that, I mean, that freaked me out because that's
exactly what you were seeing. Oh,
right. So, needless to say, the first few nights were pretty sleepless, restless.
It's funny because when you mentioned the long kitchen, the long hallway, for everyone who watched the movie Sixth Sense, that's all I kept picturing, like how you can see she was sitting in the kitchen and you can look down, you can see the bedroom. Man, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about the movie right now. Man. So did you actually, okay, you said you saw, figures, shadow figures. Did you ever encounter like, a voice, someone actually, say Joe or anything like that growing up?
Right. No, well, I didn't, but other people did for sure. So one day we came home, my mom and I were at the mall, and we came home. My dad had gotten home from work. Yeah. And he was sitting in the kitchen, smoking a cigar, drinking wine, and he looked troubled. It's 3:30 in the afternoon, and he's drinking a glass of wine already. And he had come home, and again, our apartment, how it was, long apartment, we had a little sort of storage room in our kitchen that we converted to be our little kind of office. Okay. And he came home and he made a beeline for that. We had just got our computer, so he was just kind of doing all this computer stuff, and he went into that back room, and he's loading up the computer, and he hears someone whistling in the kitchen. So he thought it was me, and he said he called my name, and the whistling stopped. And then he's like, "All right, Joseph, stop fucking around." And then he said he's getting no answer. So now my dad's getting mad. He's like, "If I have to come out there, I'm going to whip your ass. Stop playing with me." And then finally he comes out and there's nobody home. And that really, out of all the things that would happen in our apartment, my dad has always been sort of like a skeptic. And, he doesn't want to believe it. I think mostly because he's scared. But this time for sure, he couldn't deny the fact that he heard something. And he was shaking. He was shaking when we got home. I've never seen my dad like that before. And that scared the hell out of him. And that really had me scared, because it's one thing to see something from the corner of your eye, but to actually hear whistling, and I guess it could be explained away, but I don't know. There's too many things that
going back to our Christmas story, you sure it wasn't that whistling bird that you gave your mom for?
No, for sure it was.
Okay. Just making sure, man. Just, these paranormal investigators, they always got to try to cover their tracks and try to figure out. When you said whistling, I started thinking of that whistling bird that you gave them for Christmas. Yeah. So
those I love those paranormal investigative shows because they're all the same. It's always like a dark hallway, and then they're just like, "Wait, do you hear that?
What's that sound?"
And I'm like, I'm waiting. I don't hear anything.
What's funny, going off the topic and talking about these paranormal investigators, maybe there's a couple that I've seen that's like, oh shit, what is that? Kind of thing that like really caught my attention. But yeah, man, it's usually an hour of your life taken away that we didn't see anything, but we caught this. Hello? Like, it's like we waited an hour just for a little kid to say, hello? It's like, oh, come on, man.
It's one of the producers.
Yeah, it's one of the producers. And, even like these paranormal investigators on YouTube that's going around and doing these haunted investigations, they claim they go alone. And this is what I tell my kids. They claim they go alone, and then something is thrown at them. Dude, come on. You're not going to, one, I'm not stupid enough to go by myself. Never stupid enough to go by myself. Two, I'm bringing somebody with me just in case. And I'm going to use that person to throw things at me and freak me out. So I always like it. As soon as I see those on TV and I'm like, man, that's fake. I'm sorry. Yeah. That's fake. Sorry for you guys who actually went out there and did it. But, I don't believe you guys. That's all it is.
I must say, I do enjoy the ones where they actually go to like, known haunted places, like throughout the country and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy it because I'm expecting to see something. I just like the history behind it and like a lot of the cool stories, like that stuff. I believe the story behind it. It's just the silly ones where they're just like, oh, I heard something. It's like
like the East Coast, man. The East Coast, I love. Like the whole Sixth Sense thing, right? When the movie Sixth Sense came out, they picked the perfect city because Boston was like the first city where everything happened was in Boston. So when they did that whole thing and they said, okay, we're going to put, Haley Joel Osment in Boston and he's going to see all these ghosts, that kind of fit everything that happened in Boston. When you look at the zip code in Boston, it starts with 0. So it's one of the first cities established in the United States. Of course, there's going to be hauntings throughout Boston, and just not even Boston, like down in New York and everything like that. There's hauntings there. I have a buddy of mine who's NYPD told me a year after 9/11, that whole area, I've never been to New York, so that whole area around the World Trade Center just felt really heavy. And, he's like, dude, I've been in New York practically my whole life, and feeling this feeling around that area during this time made me realize there's a lot of spirits that's walking around here, And he's like your dad. He's a non-believer. He doesn't believe in anything. But, he's like, for that one moment in life, I felt like there was other beings around me other than the regular people. So,
yeah, I honestly, I can vouch for that feeling because even right after the days after 9/11, I know the feeling he's talking about. And when I was finally able to make it downtown, even remotely near the area, you just can't help but feel this kind of overwhelming sense of energy. I don't really know how to describe it, but for sure you can feel it. Yeah, it's almost thick. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Man. So. You guys, is that the same place where you guys are living right now? Is that the same place where you guys?
No. That was the last place I lived in New York before I moved out here.
Okay.
But no, thankfully here, I have not had any encounters, but I've had at least 20 years worth from where I used to live of things that I saw and went through.
And it's funny because you say not here. You guys are less than a mile away from a cemetery, and being that you're near a cemetery, it's like, are you not having any encounters here, but you had a lot over there? But again, your grandmother could have been right. That could have been a portal. Again, New York is an old Staten Island, especially, man. Wasn't Staten Island wasn't that during the whole, I don't want to say, what was it, the smallpox? Didn't they put people in Staten Island, or am I getting, or maybe it's Ellis Island?
I don't know. It could be Ellis Island, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was Staten Island too, because early on, Staten Island was mostly farmland.
Yeah.
But the military made a base there because Staten Island is across from Brooklyn, and it's almost kind of like the entrance of the bay and to go into the rivers and stuff. So they had forts on each side. So there's a lot of history in Staten Island, and I want to say there was even some, like, what do you call that, part of the Underground Railroad.
Oh wow.
Yeah. and I'll confirm it, and I'll talk about it next episode just to make sure. But there's a house near where we lived, myself and Evan from Woken Up Woke, that was rumored to be one of the stops or one of the hubs for the Underground Railroad. Yeah.
Nice.
So there's a lot of history, and that's one of the things I like about Staten Island.
Yeah.
Just side note, is all the history there.
Now, coming back here to the West Coast. Now, West Coast has a lot of San Francisco in general. Where I live in the western part of San Francisco. If I go west of where I live right now, that whole area used to be like the cavalry cemetery, right? 1800s, they had a lot of people there. In the early 1900s, they decided, hey, we're going to move these bodies. We'll move them over to Colma, which is, south of San Francisco. So there's areas in this part of the city that's still haunted where, just the other day, me and my coworker was talking about, because she felt this weird thing in the building that we work at. And I told her, well, this building used to be a mortuary back when I was going to school in this area. And it's like, they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, like in the 70s and early 80s, before, the establishment now bought this building, it was a mortuary. And it's like, what do you expect? We see things all the time. I'm going to go back to my encounter. And if you follow me on the daily podcast with Eric B, I mentioned this before. We were in high school. We were juniors, I'm gonna say seniors in high school. I don't remember. And every Friday night we would like to hang out with a bunch of, just the guys, right? One of our friends decides that he decides to date a girl, and, we're like, all right, well, go ahead and do your thing with the girl. But he was like, yo, dude, I want to go out with her, but she can't go out. But we can go over her house because she's babysitting her brother. Her parents aren't home. And I'm like, man, I don't want to spend my Friday night babysitting a kid, and while you're going to be doing whatever you're going to be doing with your girl. Right. So we decided, so there was three of us that decided to go. Me, him, and, another buddy of mine. And so we said, you know what, let's go to the house. I guess there's nothing else to do on a Friday night. They were my ride. I didn't really have a choice, right? So
of course,
we go over their house, and, the little brother opens the door, and he's like, oh, what are you guys doing here? Filipino family, straight up Filipino family, nice family. Everything was the way the Filipino family household should look like, right? You can smell the rice because she just cooked rice because, of course, we're coming over there to eat. She knows we're going to eat. Mm-hmm. We have, whatever the light dinner that we have. Then we make our way. If you guys are all familiar with Daly City houses, they're pretty much cookie cutters on the inside. They look all the same. So we go from the kitchen upstairs to the living room to the family room downstairs. I'm sorry. We go to the family room downstairs. We're watching TV, and the little brother, his name was Joey. So the little brother's name is Joey. He's sitting here with us while, my boy and his girl was sitting on the couch, watching the movie. We're like talking to Joey, playing something with Joey. I forgot what we were doing with Joey. Then all of a sudden the radio in the living room upstairs goes off. And then Joey gives us this look like, uh-oh. And I'm like, uh-oh, what? You remember, I'm in high school, man. I'm away from my city. I'm in Daly City. I'm in like in a freaky part of Daly City. So the sister looks at us and goes, did one of you guys do that? I'm like, well, how the fuck am I'm sitting right here. So she goes upstairs. She turns off the radio. And then my boy's like, hey, you guys got to cool it, man. You guys got to cool it. You guys are freaking her out. I'm like, freaking her out? I go, did you not just hear the radio turn on? So Joey's sitting with us, and he's like, it'll stop after a while. Don't worry. And I'm like, is there you have a timer going on this radio? And it's one of those big, massive stereos back in the days, right? So it's like, there's no way there's a timer on there. All right, so she comes back. We're back watching the movie, or she's watching the movie. I'm talking to Joey, and I'm Joey, man, why is that radio going off, man? I'm like trying to get it out of this kid. He was probably like 9 or 10 at the time. Then he's like, well, and right when he said that, it felt like the house rumbled, but didn't. And then the radio went off again, and it was a lot louder this time.
Oh, hell no.
And I'm like, yo, man, my aunt doesn't live that far from here, so I'm gonna start walking to her house. Yeah. So, but my other buddy, who was like, no, man, we got to get to the bottom of this. We got to see what's going on. When she goes back upstairs to turn off the radio, he's following her, and I'm like, what are you guys doing? So now all of a sudden, all of us are up there. She turns off the radio like, she does. And I'm like, all right, guys, you guys got to tell me what the hell's going on here.
Yeah. Like, stop messing with me.
Stop messing with me, because it's like this is the first time my boy's been to that house. The one that's dating her. This is the first time all of us has been to that house. Right. So we're like, all right, tell me what's going on, guys. And for you guys who live in Daly City, it's right off Skyline Drive. It's one of those houses. It's like the backyard was Skyline Boulevard or Skyline Drive. So it's kind of that eerie houses, like if you go there in middle of the night. So Joey all of a sudden likes tugging on my shirt, and he goes, "It's my brother Jonathan." And I'm looking at him like I'm looking down at him. I'm like, who the fuck's Jonathan?
Yeah.
Who the fuck's Jonathan? And then the girlfriend, I can't say her name because I'm still friends with her, right? So the girlfriend's like, "Joey, you're not supposed to say anything." And I'm like, "No, yes, you are." And I'm like,
dude,
literally,
that's the start of a horror flick.
my jacket. I'm like, my jacket is in my hand. One arm's getting ready to go in the jacket. I'm like seriously gonna fucking walk home. And I didn't care how scary that neighborhood was. I'm walking home or walking to my aunt's. And then Joey goes, "My mom said I had a brother, but didn't make it during birth."
Oh, great.
So I said, look at my friend or the sister, and I go, "Is Joey a twin?" She goes, "Yes, Joey's a twin. The baby Jonathan didn't make it, so we had the full funeral for him and everything like that." I was like, "Okay, cool." I was like, "Where's he buried?" He goes, "Oh, his urn is right here." So like there's ashes right by the fireplace mantle of the it's a small urn, and I'm like, "Oh, so he's here."
This is like the making of a nightmare, dude.
Like,
seriously.
yeah. No, I mean, it's funny because as soon as we were talking about, we're in the living room, we're standing in front of the stereo, and it's only us in the house, right? Us. The parents are gone. No one's there. You hear a cry and a laugh coming from one of the bedrooms. If you look down the hall, it's like the way it's set up. There's a hallway, bathroom, and then 3 bedrooms. You hear a laughter and crying coming from one of those bedrooms. I said, "You know what? I gotta go, guys."
Yeah.
You guys said no one's home. I'm not dealing with this shit. I'm going home. So my buddy who's dating the girl was like, "Yo, man, is anybody here?" Now he's freaked out. Right. And she's like, "No, nobody's here." And I'm like, "All right, I'm leaving. I'm sorry, man." Here. Yeah, Jonathan, and he brought some buddies over because now they're freaking us out. Then Joey's trying to tell us, "Don't be scared." I'm like, "Yo, Joey, man, I've never experienced ghost stuff like this before. Yeah. I gotta go, man. I gotta go. I gotta go." So,
oh, I'm sorry.
No. I mean, we left. I left. I started walking down the block. My buddy who was dating the girl, I guess, eventually left because he pulls up next to me and he's like, "Yo, I left." And like, where's, what's his name? He's like, "Well, he's sticking around because he's trying to figure out what the hell's going on over there."
He's trying to get some.
And I looked at him. I was like, he's going to try to bang that, right? Yeah. That's what he's going to do, right?
He's like, "Sorry, baby ghost. I'm trying to get some skins."
No, but come to find out, he ended up not. He ended up leaving. He got freaked out too. He said there was something in one of the bedrooms when I opened the door. It was like this cold wind and like this loud noise. He goes, "Dude, Jonathan is not in that house. There's something more evil in that house." Yeah. I'm like, I'm not going back there.
See, and when you talk about like the little brother Joey, it's something to be said, at least from what I've heard, and this is not just from my grandmother, but I've heard that kids, especially little kids, I guess, because of their innocence or what it is, they're sort of more in tune with that, and they're open to that. And there was a couple instances where I was babysitting my nephew, and he scared the shit out of me. One day I was babysitting him, and he was sitting on the floor in the living room playing with his toys, watching, it was like Barney or something like that. And
that's scary enough right there.
Yeah, right. And I'm hanging out with him, watching it, and I see him. Now, my nephew, he was a pleasure to babysit. He was one of the coolest, just real laid-back little kids, and he's playing with his toys, and from where I'm sitting, I can't see into the kitchen. I can't see his vantage point. Okay. He can see into the kitchen, I can't. And he's playing with his toys, and he just stops dead in his tracks, and he's looking into the kitchen. Right now, I'm watching TV, but I look down, and I'm watching him, and I see him just not moving. And he was probably about 3 years old, still in diapers, barely can make sentences at that age. and he is just zoned in. So I'm like, snap my fingers. I'm like, Devin, and he looks at me. I was like, are you okay? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, what do you see? And he's like, nothing. And then, just put his head down and kept playing with his toys. Maybe about 30 seconds, he stops playing with his toys, picks him up, takes him to the room, puts him in his little section, grabs his binky and his bottle, his little sippy cup, comes and sits next to me, lays down, and falls asleep. I was like, oh, this little kid is fucking scared. He saw something. I'm like, damn it. When's your mom coming home? Like, that should freak me out.
It's like before text messaging, before anything like that. You're like, great.
Because there was another instance where we were all hanging out in the living room, and he just broke out, like he was screaming bloody murder and pointing into the bedroom, saying, the man, the man, the man.
Oh my God. And
when I tell you, like, that was probably all the other kind of, we've had so many like little encounters, and like I said, you could kind of explain certain things away. Yeah. Especially if you just don't want to feed into that stuff. There's tons, you can use science. You can explain it away. You can say, oh, it was this, it was the wind, it was that. There was nothing that could explain away
what that
this
was.
Little kid seeing something. Like, he was scared for his life, and he was pointing into the room, and he was like, the man, me, my sister, him, we were all on the same sofa with my mom. Nope. We had two sofas, a big one and a little one. We were all on the little one. Like, you want to go check that out, Mom?
Nope.
Needless to say, all the lights were on until my dad got home that night. And he even came in and just had to, clear the room and look under the bed and show everybody, like, look, there's nobody in here. And I'm like, bullshit. He saw the man, so I'm sleeping with you guys tonight. I don't care that I'm 16.
Yep.
I'll sleep on the floor.
We're sleeping with all the lights on tonight because there's no way. No.
That one's, for sure, that one's probably scared me the most. That's still not the scariest encounter I've had at that place, but that's
we'll get to that. I got one. I got an audio for you. I do a lot of vlogging, right? And we mentioned I do a lot of vlogging, and when I'm vlogging in certain parts of San Francisco, I just hear whatever I'm talking about, right? Then I go home and I do the whole editing. You gotta, cut out the ones you don't want to put in. There's this one time, this was September 2020 of last year. I'm at the Marina Green. I think it was, we just, that week where we had the bad air quality, where it was red skies kind of thing. So I go to the Marina Green because it was cleared up. You can finally see across the bay. I'm talking about how clear it is in San Francisco. And I caught a disembodied voice in one of my vlogs. And there was nobody around me. I didn't hear this till I was editing when I got home, but I knew for sure because no one was around me because I was walking around without my mask on, and I purposely don't put my mask on when there's nobody around me when I'm vlogging, right? So I'm gonna let you guys listen. You guys tell me if you hear it. You'll hear me talking, you'll hear a little silence, and you'll hear a whisper, okay? So here it is. Tell me what you guys hear. East Bay, Alcatraz, something we did not see for the past couple weeks. Did you guys hear that?
Did he say like thank you or something?
I'm not sure what he says. I'm not sure.
That shit is pretty creepy.
And here it is. I loop it a little bit so you guys can hear it. Alcatraz, something we did not see for the past couple weeks.
It's pretty quick.
Couple weeks. You guys hear that, right? Couple weeks. So I loop it over and over again, trying to figure out what it is. I could not, for the life in me, figure out what he's saying. You thought it said thank you. I thought it said something within that vicinity of thank you or thank God or something like that. Yeah. But it's funny because this is not the first time I caught stuff like this. I caught shit before. In Westlake, there's a site called the Last Duel Site in the United States. It's the Broderick Taylor site. It was, back in the 1800s, duel was legal. So I decided to go there, and I don't have any sound bites for this one. I tried finding it. I couldn't find it. But if you go back to my vlogs and look for that one, it's the very first time I went there. I heard what sounded like horses and people like going, oh. And again, it could be the wind. You know, a lot of ghost detectives will be like, dude, you heard the wind. You probably heard a dog in the background. Yeah, I probably did. But for someone who's an amateur like me, man, I heard a horse. I heard people crying, freaked out. And then there's one incident, and I don't have that footage, but I do have it, and I'll find it one day and share it with you guys. I was talking about Green Street in San Francisco. It was like, it's where all the Marvel movies are all, when San Francisco does filming, they go to this one location. It's on Green Street. It's like a nice spot where you can see the Bay Bridge, you can see Coit Tower. So it's a nice spot. I was walking up the hill one day, that same thing, and I hear a voice behind me goes, look out. I didn't catch it when I was doing my vlog, but right when he said, look out, there was an accident behind me that just happened. I caught that all on video. I turn around, you see my camera. I was like, oh shit, you know, there's an accident. You know, it was a scooter that ran into a car. And I was like, oh man, you know, like, you know, I stopped the filming. I went over there to make sure the guys were okay. They were good. They were done. Went about my business. But when I got home and I did my editing, I heard, look out. And then, you know, 20 seconds, I hear a bang. I turn around. I'm like, oh shit, what is that? So, yeah, man, it's again, there's a lot of ghost encounters in San Francisco. Sometimes these ghosts wants to be heard. You guys hear about the EMFs when you hear these ghost stories, right? That they only can talk into certain devices, and then later on you hear it. So, man, when I'm doing this, I go back, believe it or not, man, hours that we speak, I go back and I listen to what we talk about. I have my AirPods on, it's tightly fit. And if I hear something that shouldn't be part of the podcast, I'm like, oh shit. Luckily, we haven't yet.
Well, I was just about to say, you know, do the same thing. I always, you know, listen to our podcast to see what I can do better. Yeah. I edit our Woken Up Woke podcast. So if I hear something that doesn't belong there, that may be the end of my podcasting. Just for a little bit, at least till we get another place, because I'm not trying to have anybody whispering to me to tell me to look out or get down or thank you, whatever the fuck.
Joseph. Man, no. I mean, it's creepy because, you know, for someone who does this for fun, I do it for fun. I don't do it for a living. And I can count maybe like less than 10 encounters in certain parts of San Francisco that I went to. And I did a segment called Ghost-tober. I went to like the most haunted parts of San Francisco, or allegedly haunted parts. I went there purposely to try to get sound, to try to get maybe a video evidence of something, but nothing came to me during that month of Ghost-tober, or during the week of Ghost-tober. And it was kind of one of those things where it's like, all right, man, you know, I don't know if these stories are true or not, or people just making them up. But on the days that I'm not looking for sound or not looking for, that's when I get it. And I'm like, what the hell? Yeah. Look out. I mean, you know, in that one that I let you hear, I was walking towards the edge of the waterfront. So maybe he was telling me, look out, don't walk towards the front, or else I wouldn't be sitting here right now. But I don't know, man. It's freaky.
See, I mean, I like to believe we have guardian angels or somebody looking out for us. So, you know, maybe that's what that was. Somebody's just kind of, looking out for you.
Yeah. I mean, it was a guy's voice. I mean, there's a couple guys that I can think of that could have said that, but yeah, man, it was still to hear it when you're editing the video and you're like, whoa. You're like, whoa, what is this? You're like, wait a minute, what is this?
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? So, you know, you have to have other ears. So I let other people listen to it. I'm like, do you guys hear this?
Yep.
You know, the non-believers are like, yeah, dude, that's you messing around. I'm like, no, dude, that's not me messing around. Why the hell would I do that?
And listen, man, to the non-believers, look, I get it. I mean, most times I try to find, you know, a scientific or reasonable explanation as to why it happens. But once I've kind of exhausted all of those things and I just, there's really no explanation for it, that's when it starts getting a little creepy for me. Because I'm, you know, I believe in energy, right? Energy doesn't go away, right? It just changes form. You can't get rid of energy. So I feel like when we pass or we transition and whatever you believe, it's whatever you believe. But I feel that there's some sort of residual energy that's still around, whether it's replaying a moment or, you know, if it was something traumatic or something happy or whatever. I feel like sometimes those feelings are left in the air behind, and so I feel like if you're the type of people like us, maybe who are maybe a little more open to that, you may experience some of this stuff. You may see it, and then also there's people that don't believe in that stuff and experience these things. I'm a strong believer that there is definitely some sort of remnants of the past still here.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, especially like a city like San Francisco and, like I said, New York, there's a lot of things still floating around and sometimes they want to be seen and heard. Sometimes that's all we got to do is just sit there and listen and see what they got to say.
Now, let me ask you, what would you do if we talk about kind of these instances where there's things that can be explained away or whatever, but what would you do if you legitimately saw like a spirit, like if you saw an actual 49er standing in the steps in your building, one of these gold mining guys, how do you have any idea how you would react? Because I feel like I would probably freeze. Honestly, I don't think I would be able to move.
Before I answer your question, I do have a story that kind of involves what you just brought up.
Okay.
Before I worked in the hotel, I used to work at the club next to the hotel, and I used to start early in the morning. You used to have to be there by like 4:00. 4:30 in the morning to get the whole place set up, right? So I used to have to leave my place like around 4:00, 4:15. You guys know traffic. There's nothing going on there, right? I was driving down Post Street, and I remember the street, Post and Franklin to be exact. I was waiting for the light to turn red. Something made my attention turn to the right. There's a light post, and there's the stop light post next to each other. In between that, I see something go like this, like pops their head out to look at me. And it was bright enough to where it wasn't an actual person, but it was dark enough to where I'm like, okay, did I just see a ghost? And I sat there, and it's funny because I was in such a frozen like state that I didn't realize the light recycled 3 times. Because I was just so busy staring at that post because that person popped their head out and I waited for that, whatever it was, to pop their head out again. I couldn't explain what it was. I was like, dude, what the hell did I just see? What did I just see that's just sitting there? And now I'm freaking out. I'm like hitting the gun. I'm hitting making sure I hit all, because now I'm afraid that I'm gonna look in my rearview mirror and that person's sitting in the back seat, right? Like, that's one of the freakiest things that I would see if I saw that. So to answer your question, I would probably freeze, because if I saw something, which I saw that day, but it wasn't like it was in my line of sight, but I wasn't outside the car. If I saw something, like if I was walking up a stairwell and all of a sudden there's somebody there and I knew it was a ghost, I would probably freeze. I probably wouldn't know. I mean, again, I didn't realize the lights cycled 3 times before I realized, oh shit, I'm still sitting here. Right?
You were entranced.
I froze. I mean, a lot of people will say like, oh, the spirit already took your spirit and invited you and did this. Like, dude, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in that. I mean, I froze. That's pretty much what it is. I froze. What it was I saw, I don't know. I mean, I know I saw a spirit. I know I saw a ghost, but what the spirit was doing there, I don't know. I mean, I went out the next day, or that same day, I went that area and I looked at what's the surrounding buildings there. It was an apartment building. There was nothing there that should be a reason why the ghost is walking around that neighborhood.
Right.
But again, it's San Francisco. You don't know what's walking around the neighborhood.
Exactly. It could have just been a homeless person.
I thought it was, man. I mean, I want to believe it was a homeless person. I rolled down my window and I threw like a penny at it right before I left to see if someone will pop out and say, oh, shit, a penny. Nothing popped out. Nothing popped out. So I was like, yeah.
See, for me, I haven't had any experiences here in the Bay since I've been here, thankfully. But, the hotel that I work at, there have been, and I want to say this might have been when you worked there as well. I could be wrong, but
I have that. That's on my list.
Yeah, there has been a death at the hotel, and this was before I ever started working here. It was on the 15th floor, and no one has ever, at least not to hotel staff, as far as guests goes, no one ever has claimed to see or feel or anything weird happen to them. But right now, with the hotel being closed, all the lights are off.
Ooh.
And so just to save energy, right?
When you say off, even the long, creepy hallways.
Yes. So when you do patrols now, you have to do patrols with a flashlight in a dark, long, creepy hallway.
I quit.
That has not been occupied in the last year?
Yeah,
at least. So yeah, shout out to my boys who have to do that patrol, because my patrol's well lit.
People still
but
there.
If any of you guys call out, I might have to do it. So yeah, but that's pretty creepy. But just knowing that, something happened, because again, not to repeat myself, but going back to the whole energy thing, I feel like whenever anything really traumatic happens, that's when you get this kind of lingering ghost energy, spirit stuff, and that's when I'm like, I don't get paid enough for this.
And what's creepy about the hotel is, I don't know if you know, but it's built right behind one of the oldest churches in San Francisco.
Yep.
And whatever residual is going on at that church could be affecting, what's going on in the surrounding area, not just your hotel, but the surrounding area. So man, yeah, I mean, just to that church alone is already creepy. Mm-hmm. Now think about what it looked like in the 1800s, 1900s when it was built, and what was around that area. Yeah. So,
and I always go back to the big quake back in, what was that, 1906? 06. How many lives were lost then? And this was all downtown, right where the building or my hotel is. So you can't help but feel like, there's that whole area, there's got to be, people walking around. And the thing is too, with San Francisco, you have so many hipsters who dress like it's the 1800s. You can't tell who's real and who's not. Unless they have rainbow socks on.
That's why I carry pennies in my pocket. I'm not kidding, man. I carry pennies in my pocket. And the reason why I carry pennies in my pocket, one, when if a car is getting ready to hit me when I'm walking, I'll throw a penny at him and let him know, hey, you almost hit me. The other reason why, if I see someone wearing an 1800 garment walking my direction, I'm going to throw a penny at them. If it hits them and they say, ow, I'll be like, I'm sorry, man. But if it goes right through them, I might be walking the other direction. Yeah,
Tip his hat to you, top of the morning to you. Like, oh, shit.
Sorry. It's funny. The same place, the same hotel. Again, this goes back to when I was working at the club, right? The health club. The parking lot, I'm not sure which lot it is, but it's the lot that's not connected to the hotel. It's not the parking structure that's not connected to the hotel, but it's on the other side.
Further down. Gotcha.
It's in the same area, but it's on the other side. There's like a door that I think it's like one of the stairwells connects to that. Anyways, when that parking lot was built, and I remember it was being built. I was one of the morning managers there at the health club. There would be health club members that would come like at 5 o'clock in the morning. Who knows why they would work out at 5 in the morning, but they would be like, "Hey, I think I heard a little kid crying in your garage." I'm like, "That's not my garage." I would always call, the hotel security and say, "Hey, there's people saying they're hearing a little kid crying in the garage." Oh, okay, where? I was like, I don't know, whatever the bottom level is, right? So, of course, hotel security would go there and check it out. And when I first got to the hotel, that's the first thing I asked. Hey, what's this little girl crying in the hotel? And, one of the guys were like, oh, that's members who are probably hungover from the night before, hearing things, and I'm like, okay, as long as, and luckily enough, we didn't have to patrol that stairwell. But everything else was creepy enough that one stairwell was fine with me, that I didn't have to deal with that.
You just reminded me now with that story. So there has been an instance where someone heard something. So in the hotel where the front desk is. You remember where the front desk is.
Yeah.
In that area, if you're standing in front of the front desk, there's sort of like 2 hallways to each side of you. One goes to this area, one goes to the bathrooms. And we had, again, I work graveyard, and one of the front desk girls one night, and this was completely out of the blue. Everything was shut down. It was probably about 3:00. So, no, all hotel guests were kind of in their room, bar, restaurant, everything's closed. And she calls for security. And so we go up to the front desk and we're like, what's going on? And she's like, I think there's some guests or someone in the bathroom because we keep hearing like laughing.
Oh.
So like, okay. So we go and now, mind you, no one ever told this girl anything. She was fairly new, been working there a few months. Wasn't like anyone gave her any ghost stories to spook her out or anything like that, And we go to the bathroom and it's all clear. So we start checking the hallway and the area back there. Don't see anything. Go to the other side. Don't see anything. Like, it's all clear. Maybe, maybe there's a guest going to use the bathroom and then just went upstairs. You didn't hear him.
Yeah.
And it happened probably a couple more, I would say at least 2 to 3 more times in the night within, say, about an hour to 2 hour span.
Oh, wow.
To the point where this girl was like scared. She thought we were messing with her. We even at some point lied and said we were messing with her just so that it would get out of her head because she was starting to freak us out. So it was just like, you know what? It's you're the newbie. Welcome to Graveyard. We're messing with you, but no one was up there, and we even checked the cameras. We went back from the time that she called to all the times. That whole span of when she called, and we checked a few times, and there was no one up there. There was one of the cleaners at one point. That was it. And he wasn't anywhere near. She would have seen him make noise if that was him. And she said it was clear as day, was like a kid or a young girl's voice, like not voice, but just laughing. Oh. And I'm like, man, listen, again, I don't get paid enough for this.
Yeah.
My patrols are going to be a lot shorter from here on out.
I mean, that was kind of like a code of ethics that we had when we worked in the graveyard shift. And anyone else who works in the graveyard shift, whether it's in a hospital or any place else, PD, correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember in the hotel, code of ethics was we never scared each other when it comes to, like we're going to hide and you're going to come here and I'm going to jump out and go,
Right.
We never did that. That's just one of those things. And I got that from, remember Bob the engineer? Bob the engineer told me that, man, we don't ever talk about ghost stories because, one, it's already freaky enough to work graveyards. And 2, we don't ever jump out and scare each other because, that's just one thing we don't do. So for anyone to actually, if there was somebody messing with her, man, sucks for you for doing that to this poor little girl. Does the person still work there?
No. She doesn't. She had at some point transferred. She moved up in the business. So
okay.
Her, but yeah, no, she didn't quit because of that. But she wanted to though. I mean, and she was such a nice person too. So just to see her all disheveled and genuinely worried because she knew what she heard, and I was really just kind of no. That was just I'm apologizing. Meanwhile, in my head, I'm like, fuck, what are you here, please? I don't know. A little kid comes running out.
I mean, that's one of those things. Like when I was working in that hotel, and even in the other hotel, I do have a story about the other hotel that's kind of freaky. But even in this hotel, when I hear things or I see something in the distance and I can't explain it, again, I'm going to try to debunk it. Maybe a person in one of the rooms is making a lot of noise. Maybe the shadow I saw was like a shadow from a guest coming out of one of the elevators and going into the rooms on that end. Right. It's just one of those things that I always try to debunk. I never ever said, oh shit, that's a ghost. I remember one time in this hotel that we worked at together, I heard a baby crying and I called down to base, hey base, just confirming this room is occupied, right? Base looks, yes, blah, blah, blah. Thompson, whatever is occupying this room. All right, cool. Just making sure, because I don't want to walk by a room and then this goes to my next story. When I moved from this hotel to this other hotel, this hotel that I lived at used to be known for people committing suicide. And it's a high-rise hotel. It has a patio. So what did they end up doing? They started locking patios, right? You can't go out the patio anymore. So just so happens I'm on the 14th floor. I'm doing my patrols. The hallways aren't as long as the hallways that we were at. These hallways were kind of like, there's like 3 rooms on one end, 2 rooms on this end, and 1 room. It's kind of like I want to call it like a swastika. That's kind of how I experienced what it looked like. So I just happened to be in the 1413 side, and they gave a noise complaint of a baby crying. I'm like, okay. So I go up there, and I said, yes, I do hear a baby crying. We can't really do anything with a baby crying because, the baby's crying. It's like, whatever. 2 a.m, I'm getting another noise complaint. It's a baby crying. And now we're hearing baby crying and things being moved around in that room, right? So I called down to the front desk. I said, can you tell me the occupants in 1413? They're like, 1413 is unoccupied. And I'm like, can you tell me who's in 1414? Because that was the adjacent room next to it. They're like 1414, let's just say Harris, but it's supposed to be just one guy. So I'm like, okay, did this guy bring his family with him and not tell us that his family's here?
Yeah.
This guy, Harris, opens the door because he hears me talking and he goes, are you going to knock on their door and tell them to fucking stop? Because they're keeping me up all night. So I'm like,
ooh.
Base. Harris is alone. Harris is by himself. And they're like, all right, Eric, we're sending another guy up there. We're gonna have you just open the door and see what's going on in that room. Again, room is occupied. Now we're thinking maybe a homeless person snuck in. Right. Maybe someone didn't, get the right whatever, or they're supposed to be in the wrong room. So me and another guard's there, and one of the engineers is now there with us, right? We open the door. As soon as we open the door, it's like this warmth, not cold. This warmth like hits us, and all of a sudden, there's no more crying. There's no more crying. So we turn on. I'm not one of those stupid guys who won't turn on the lights. I turn on all the lights. Yeah. I look through everything, and this is not a big room. It's a small room. It's like 1 bed, bathroom, closet. You can see the other end from the front door. So I'm looking through everything. I look under the bed. I'm like, base, there's nothing here. They're like, all right, Eric, we're good. You can close the door and tell Mr. Harris if he wants to relocate, we have a room for him. I'm like, all right, whatever. Mr. Harris is like, as long as the noise stops, I'm fine. Right? So throughout the whole night, there was no more noise, nothing. It was fine. So I'm like, hey, fuck's going on in that floor? Yeah. So they told me 14, for some reason, is where people who committed suicide would commit suicide, not in that particular room, but on that particular floor. They would open the patio, they would just jump to their death, and and I'm like, yeah.
Hotels are like an inherently creepy place to begin with anyway, because not everyone goes to a hotel for vacation. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind those doors in hotels, all too well. And, I think, again, traumatic experiences and people killing themselves. Yeah. You just reminded me last week, again, like I said, the hotel's closed. We don't have anyone in the guest part of the hotel's private residences. We do. Was that Wednesday, Thursday night, our dispatch says, he hops on the radio and he calls engineering and he's like, hey, engineering, are you guys in room, I think it was like 613, something like that. And he's like, no. And he's like, oh, okay, because I just got a emergency call from that room. So we're like, huh? So then the engineers all hop on the radio. Yeah, nobody's in there. No one's in that room, So now, that one of the guys is like, do you want us to check it out? So I want to say 2 of our guys went up with one of the engineers. And I mean, now this is a phone call. So there's no denying that phone was used. You could talk about sounds and seeing things. Someone physically made that call from that room, and there was no one in the room. And of course, now we have to sweep the floors, make sure there, like you said, no homeless people got in, or no one's in the hotel or anything like that. And there wasn't. And that again was one of those instances where I just didn't want to think about it. I was just like, oh, it's been raining, it's messing with the phone lines, it's shorting. So yeah, that was. I forget. Yeah, that was a creepy one that just recently
oh
happened.
My God, yeah. And again, code of ethics, man. So there's no way it should have been or could have been an engineer or even one of the guards going in there just to say, I'm gonna fuck around and call and hang up. I mean, with nowadays, with the key cards the way it is, they can track who was the last person to use their key card. Man, I mean, again, San Francisco, you know, that, like you said, 1906 earthquake, downtown part of San Francisco was the worst hit because at the time, you know, it wasn't as strong as the buildings wasn't as strong as they are now. So, man, yeah, there was a lot of deaths that happened in that area, and we never know, man. I mean, like half the time when I was there and I was standing on Market Street, I always wondered if it was a person that I'm seeing. Is it a ghost that I'm seeing? What am I seeing? You know, it's like, I always wonder that. And even till this day, man, it's like, you know, I don't ever leave the house past a certain time anymore, luckily, you know, because of the work that I do. But when I do leave the house, it's kind of like, what am I seeing? What am I looking at? You know, are you a ghost? Are you not a ghost?
Yeah.
What is
especially
it, you know?
Market Street late night, man. You see figures all over, and again, we don't know if it's a homeless person or not, but there's plenty of times where you see someone just out of place. Yeah, doesn't look like they belong there. And I'm like you, I'm always thinking to myself, is that person right? Maybe I need to start carrying around some pennies. I'm just pennies. You can see me on the news, you know, getting arrested for just throwing pennies at people in the street.
No, see, I got an alibi for that. My alibi is, hey, you asked me for change. He asked me for change. I gave him a penny. He's saying I threw it. I didn't throw it at him. I gave it to him. He threw it back at me because he's like, dude, I don't want a penny. But yeah, man, I mean, just any ghostly encounter, period, whether it's something that you and I are talking about or something that we experience. I mean, there is a lot. I mean, we might have to do a second segment with this because there is a lot that happened where again, I try to debunk things in my head. I try to find a logical reason, explanation why this is happening before I can say it's paranormal, you know? And now with phones, the way we have our phones, we could actually just take our phone out, start recording, taking all this stuff. And I recommend everyone who was ever having a paranormal encounter, whether it's 2:00 in the afternoon or 2:00 in the morning, man, take your phone out, start recording, see what's going on, you know?
Yeah, same thing with Sasquatch. I want better footage all around.
I want proof. I want proof that there's a Sasquatch out there. I want proof that there's a UFO at Roswell. Give me proof. And you know.
So I'm gonna go ahead and jump to my scariest experience, just because I hate talking about it. Okay. I one day was in the kitchen. Again, a lot of stuff happens when we're in that kitchen for whatever reason. And I was standing in the pantry doorway, and I was just kind of similar to when you're, you know, trying to find something to eat in the fridge. I just have the door open and I'm standing there and I'm just looking around. Like, you have some cereal or something like that. And from standing in that doorway, if you look to your right, there's a gap between the wall where you can kind of see into the bathroom. And as I'm looking into the pantry, I see from the corner of my eye, I see my dad, and he's coming towards me really fast, and almost as if he's going to hit me. Like, I had the feeling like he was coming to hit me or do something to me. And I'm looking, and I go like that, you know, I react, I kind of flinch, and I look, and I don't see anything. And like like my hair's standing up when I tell you, I was like, fuck. Like, I knew what I saw. I knew what I felt more than anything. I felt like my dad was angry and he was coming to hit me, like I did something or something, you know. And he was in the living room, and my mom was in the kitchen with me, and she was washing dishes, and she happened to turn right at that moment, and she saw me flinch, and she saw my reaction. But I didn't say anything. I kept looking into the pantry, and she goes, what happened? And I was like, oh, nothing. But she could see it in my face. I was pale, I was tearing up. Like, I was so fucking scared. Oh. And she goes, what did you see? Yeah. And then, like, I couldn't talk. I was just like, just standing there in the kitchen. And she's like, what? Because now I'm scaring her, you know. And she's like, what did you see? And I was like, no, I could have sworn I saw Dad, you know, coming to him. And then he walks in at this moment. He's like, what's going on? And she's like, oh, he saw something. So my mom, being, you know, typical religious Puerto Rican mom, starts lighting up candles, doing her rosary. She's like, "You need to go to church Sunday. You need God."
You're coming with us. I don't care if you're sleeping. Yeah.
Throwing holy water on me while I'm sleeping. Like, she did her whole spiel. But yeah, to this day, man, that for me, hands down, was the scariest moment, because that's the other thing I forgot to mention. Whatever spirit this was or entity in the house liked to take the form of one of us in the house. It would like to fuck with us. You know, one day I was in my room and I hear my parents yelling my name, like calling my name, and I'm like, you know, I come out the room, I'm like, what? Because high school, all I did was listen to music, so
yeah,
you know, I'd be blasting, I wouldn't hear anything, but I heard them yelling over the music, and I come out of my room, and when I come out of my room, I freak them out. Now I see them like they're spazzing. They're like, "Are you messing around with us?" They're like, "No, I'm in my room. What do you?" My dad thought he saw me go from my room and run into the living room, and he turned and saw, and again, he's calling my name, and then I'm not answering, and now my mom's calling my name. Now they're both yelling my name, scared, and they see me come out of my room, so that freaked them out.
Oh,
like who the fuck's in there? I'm like, there's nobody in here, I hope. Like, Jesus, but yeah, those two, but especially the one where I thought I saw my dad coming towards me, that freaked me out beyond belief, and I still, like, I don't think about it too much because I can't sleep if I think about it too much.
Oh man, I'd pay money to go back to that place, to go check that place out. I mean, I would go there. I mean, you know, or at least ask the people that's living there now, like, hey, are you guys feeling anything, or are you guys seeing anything? Yeah. You know, I mean, just to see if they're experiencing the same thing you experienced growing up. You know, I mean, I would pay to hear anything like that again. I mean, for a different family to have that same ghostly experience you guys are having. I mean, that's just wow.
Yeah, because like I said, that's what always did it for me, was when other people would experience things, because, you know, when your family, you know, you guys can spook each other, and oh, I saw this, so now everyone sees it, and that sort of stuff. So I was never quick to believe my mom or my sisters or something like that. But if I had a friend come over, a family member come over, that knows nothing about it, and you see
their reaction
and experience something, that's when it would get creepy for me. That's when it's like, and my boy at work, we were talking about this stuff loosely the other day, and he's like, "And you lived there for 20 years?" I was like, I had no choice. I was a kid. It was rent control.
Rent was cheap, exactly. Rent was cheap. What's a little ghost? Come on, man.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, hey, move over, Casper.
It wasn't bothering us. It was just making me look like someone that I wasn't, stuff like that, man. Since we're going to end it with the scariest one, man, again, we might have to do a part 2 with this one, because this one, I'm going to jump to the most scariest one that I've ever experienced, and it happened in the 90s. I was already done with high school. I want to say it was like 91, 92. My uncle in Arkansas just passed away, and you know, my second cousins, they're half Filipino and half white. So I decided, hey, I'm not in school, I'm not working. Let me go take a flight out to Arkansas. Let me console my cousins. Let me be there for them. Okay. So I waited, I think 2 weeks after he passed away, after they buried him and did all that, before I came over. So I came over. They live in a creepy North Little Rock house that was right across from a lake. And it was a cool lake, you know, Filipinos, man. When my mom and dad came to visit, my dad was there early in the morning fishing, and, you know, we're eating fish every day, right? But now I'm going there without my mom and dad. I'm going there by myself, you know, literally. I'm not 21 yet, right? I'm probably like 19, 20. I have all my cousins there, except for one. He's in the military. He's in a Air Force base in Memphis. So I have my younger cousin, name is Kevin. Or you're going to use real names here. His name is Kevin. Kevin did not believe in ghosts at all, right? Now, mind you, my mindset is, let me make sure my cousins are okay. Let me make sure my aunt's okay. Oh, shit, my uncle just died in this house. That's what I'm thinking, right? And he was a cool uncle, you know, typical, you know, hillbilly uncle that lived in the South, you know, had that accent and loved to talk about his military experience. I'm like, all right, cool, you know, cool guy, you know, lovable guy. Now, my other cousin, his name is Arnell. Him and his wife and their baby lived in the downstairs floor. And they were cool again. They had their own thing going on, and every now and then I would hang out with them. So the first night I was there, what are we doing? We're playing basketball in the little yard. We're jumping all over the yard, and then I wanted to bring the court down a little bit lower, or the hoop down a little bit lower, because we wanted to slam dunk. Because we were kids, we wanted to slam dunk. So I'm like trying to get it down, and I hear no, and I'm like, which one of you guys said that? And it was me, Kevin, and Arnell. We're the only two there, right? Or three there. And I'm like, which one of you guys said that? And they're sitting here looking in the toolbox, butt crack sticking out, bent over, trying to look for a tool to bring this down. And I'm like, which one of you guys said that? They're like, said what? They're looking at me with their country accent. Said what, Eric? We didn't say nothing. And I'm like, someone just said no. They're like, none of us said no. So I'm like, all right. So then I said, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't lower this down. Something said no to me. Something said no to me. And at that instant, right when that happened, we heard the loudest scream coming from the living room. And mind you, my aunt's still mourning, right? She's still mourning the loss of her husband. So we all drop what we're doing. We run to the living room. Living room's empty. And then we're shouting out, the sister, Melissa, where, they're like, where's mom? They're like, mom went to the bank to get some stuff with Arlene, which is the sister-in-law. And I'm like, you guys heard that scream, right? They're like, yeah, we all heard the scream. Melissa was in the front yard, so there's no way she screamed. And I'm like, all right, what are we hearing? I'm like, this city kid who's like freaking out, because this was like the first night I was there. And I'm like, all right, let's just chill. We're gonna finish this up, whatever, it's done. Right. My aunt was one of the true religious type people in the world. She's one of those, there's no such thing as dinosaurs, because if you believe in dinosaurs, you don't believe in Adam and Eve, because Adam and Eve was supposed to be the first people to walk on earth, right? So she's how religious she is. So I'm sitting there, we're talking, she's smoking a cigarette. It's like, dude, it's country quiet. That's just the best way I can explain it, right? No cars coming. And I said, how are you doing? Are you doing okay? She's like, yeah, I'm doing fine. I'm perfectly okay. I've been married to him for 30, 40 years, and just to try to figure things out without him. Right when we're talking, I hear a moan coming from the far bedroom. And it sounded like someone suffering, right? That's the moan I'm hearing. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at her like this look like, did you hear that? But she's talking. She's still talking. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe she's pretending she didn't hear it, and I'm hearing it, right? And then I hear someone in the kitchen, like there's only one way in the kitchen. There's they have to pass through us to go through the kitchen, right? And then I'm hearing her going, Kevin, quit that racket in there. Kevin, quit all that noise in there. Excuse me. Then I'm like, okay, Kevin's in the kitchen, right? All right, Kevin's in the kitchen. I'm hearing a moan in the bedroom. All right, whatever. And then it was the sound of the kitchen was getting louder and louder. And it sounded like they couldn't figure out where to put this plate. And that's the sound it made. It was this wrestling plate sound. And then she goes, Kevin, damn it, stop messing around in the kitchen. She's pissed now because he's making all this noise. He comes out from one of the other bedrooms, not the bedroom where I heard the noise from, another bedroom. Right. She's like, what, Mom? And I'm like looking at her like, she goes, who's in the kitchen? He walks in the kitchen and he's like, no one's in here, Mom. And I'm like, nah, man, someone's fucking in there. My aunt was so pissed off at me because I swore. I said, no, fucking someone's in there. I fucking heard someone in there. She's like, and she said my full name, Erickson. I'm in trouble when you say my full name. She's like, Erickson. I'm like, you heard it too because you thought it was Kevin.
Why you get mad at me?
It's like, why you getting mad at me? It was Kevin in the kitchen. Then seriously, my aunt was going to give me a Valium. She knew I was freaking out so bad. She was going to give me a Valium. She sat me down. She goes, hey, I'm going to tell you something right now. I said, okay. You're going to hear things. You might see things. Because for the past 3 weeks, there's things going on here. I'm like, Like,
Couldn't
he
give
goes,
me the heads up before I came
yeah,
here.
exactly what I said. He goes, like, you're going to hear this. You might hear that. You heard the thing in the kitchen. You might hear a cry. You might hear a laughter. You might hear something. Don't worry. It's your Uncle Glenn. He's just getting acclimated to the afterlife. So she's telling me all this religious thing, right? I'm like, okay. She goes, so do you want to go home? I said, yes. I want to go home tomorrow. I'm freaking out.
You were in the car when you said yes.
I'm freaking out. It's like, it's 11 o'clock at night. I'm in Arkansas. I don't know what the hell's going on here.
Oh man, yeah, that's on top of that you're super far away from home, somewhere that you're not even used to, and then you're going through all this.
I'm in a hick town, it's like I'm Chinese to everyone out there, right? Because they don't know what a Filipino is, right? So that night, that same night, mind you, this is the first night. That night, my cousin was like, he slept. So we had the two beds. I slept in my other cousin's bed, who was in the Air Force. He slept on the other bed, and I said, "Hey, Kevin, do you mind if we leave the lights on?" Then he's messing with me now. He's like, "Are you scared?" I'm like, "Fuck yeah, I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm not kidding. I'm scared." He's like, all right. So Terry, the brother who's in the Air Force, used to do this thing to Kevin all the time before they go to sleep, and they would mess with his ear, would tap his ear before he goes to sleep. And I told Kevin, hey, we're not fucking with each other. I'm not going to touch you. You don't touch me, because if you touch me and it's not you and I accidentally punch you because it is you, I'm sorry. That's all I'm going to say right now. So we're not touching each other. Yeah, we'll be fighting. He's like, all right, cool. I hated sleeping with the covers over my head. I hated that just because I felt claustrophobic. But that week I was there, I did. So that first night we were sleeping, I had the covers over my head. I can see the silhouette of the light coming through the blanket. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to fall asleep. And all of a sudden, 20, 30 minutes later, gosh, Eric, I thought you said we weren't going to touch each other. Blanket goes down. I was like, Kevin, I didn't fucking touch you, man. I'm sitting right here. He goes, you just tipped my ear. I was like, Kevin, man, I did not touch you. I swear to God, I didn't touch you. And then Melissa comes to our room. Her room was right next door. She comes to our room. She goes, yes, guys. And I'm like, yes, guys, what? She goes, you were knocking on the door. I was like, nobody was knocking on anything.
Peace.
Nobody. Literally, I called my dad that same night. Arkansas is 2 hours ahead. I said, Dad, I want to go home. Then he goes, you can't handle it? I'm like, no. I go, this is messing with my psyche. This is messing with me, period. There's shit here I can't fucking explain that I need to leave. Yep. My aunt understood. She knew. She told my mom, and it's funny because her and my mom made a little side bet. My mom said, oh, he'll last the week. He'll be there for the week.
So messed up.
She told my mom, no, he's not gonna last the night.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shit going on right now that he's not gonna make the night.
Yeah.
So the next day, my aunt goes, we're gonna get your ticket, and we're gonna. So I was supposed to leave the Friday the Friday the week later, but they ended up getting my ticket to where I can leave the next day, because there was no fucking way I was gonna stay.
I don't blame you. Like I'm like you. Like, look, I'm a punk. If I'm scared, I'm scared. I'm not gonna play and be the tough guy or be the brave guy. I hear a sound. I'm not the one to go check it out. I'll just close everything and wait for the sound to get to me. Yep. If not, let it move on. Like, I don't play around with that stuff.
I mean, it was
not ashamed. It
was the scariest situation that I've ever been in. I've been in scary situations. I've been with people wanting to punch me for no reason. I've been with people trying to rob me for no reason. But to be in a house where it's been 3 weeks that someone just passed away, and who knows what else happened in that house before they even moved in there, was, to me, was like, yeah, you're right. I can't. I mean, you know what? I did not sleep for that whole night. I said, fuck it. I'm watching TV. I'm watching TV.
I don't blame you. Yeah, not at all. And like how your friend was talking about, 9/11 and the site afterwards. It's that same feeling you get when, like you said, when you go to anyone who's been to, someone's home after someone has passed away, whether it be family or friends, you feel a certain heaviness. If you've ever gone into someone's room who's just recently passed away, you can feel that person in the room. You can feel, when my older cousin passed away, went to my aunt's house and went into his room, and again, like I could just feel his presence. And there's always something, and I know Filipinos, you guys are very similar to us as far as traditions, especially if you're Catholic. You know, we do the whole thing, the praying on the 40th day after the person passed, and having these vigils and praying to hope that they have a easy transition to the other side and things like that. And so, yeah, you're I feel like at those times in particular, and if you're like us, where you're kind of open to certain things, you're probably going to get more experiences. And they could, man, they could be creepy. And for me, it doesn't matter if it's a loved one, if it's a stranger. Again, it all scares the shit out of me.
I'm okay with, if I feel, my grandmother passed away, my aunt passed away last year, and I wanted them to say something to me, to do something to me. I wanted that feeling, because I wanted to let them know that, okay, I know you're here. But lately, and I don't know if you guys feel the same way, or if other people feel the same way, lately I've been seeing them in my dreams, and they've been conversating with me in my dreams. So I'm taking that as they're talking to me while I'm asleep, which I guess to them, because they know I'm such chicken shit, that they know if they said something to me while I'm awake, they know I'd freak out. So lately they've been saying things to me in my sleep, and I'm like, all right, I'll deal with that. That's fine with me, and
that was one thing my grandmother told me when I was young, when we first moved, because I was creeped out and I was scared. And she always told us, like, look, there's no need to be scared, especially if it's, like you said, if it's family. She said, just tell them, like, hey, leave me alone, or whoever it is, just go rest or something like that. She's like, there's no need to be scared. And when she said that, that kind of helped. And I think that helped me out through the whole time that we lived there. She's like, they don't mean you any harm. And she also told me, she's like, your family is not, if they know you're going to be scared, they won't come to you that way. So I told her, I was like, please, don't come to me if you know I'm going to be scared. And I've had instances where I've had dreams with loved ones that have passed, and I've had like conversations, and those are so pleasant. Those are so nice compared to having some fucking body walk by. It's like, so
and
it's all about your mind state.
You're right. I rather you speak to me in my dream than come to me while I'm driving at 2 a.m. and I look in my rearview mirror and there you are sitting there. Please don't do that. Don't do that. That's not.
I'm going to the bathroom at 2 a.m. That's not the time for us to have a conversation.
I purposely try not to drink, and I stopped drinking water at 9, just because I don't want to have to get up in the middle of the night to go use the bathroom. I turn on the light and I look in my mirror and someone's standing there like, "What's up?" Like, what the fuck? What's up? I'm when it comes to the paranormal, I may talk a lot of shit. It's funny because I would rather go look for a Bigfoot and go hunt a UFO than to sit here and go, hey, we're going to go check out this haunted asylum that's been condemned. Like, all right, dude, I'll be out here waiting for you guys. I'll be right here waiting for you guys.
It's funny. I actually did that, and we spoke about this. There was these asylums, I guess is the best way you can describe them here. Oh, not here, but back in Staten Island. And that was kind of the thing to do when you were in high school, is to kind of go in there and investigate. And I was like, nope, I'm staying outside. Me and my boy Dwayne, and we looked at each other. I'm like, damn it. It's like, what? I'm like, in horror movies, the ones that stay outside are always the first ones to go.
Die.
Shit. So we went inside.
We did that too, man. Like before, in the high school days, we had bunkers here along the Ocean Beach. There's bunkers there. Before they closed them down, they used to be open. People used to walk through them. So one of the dumb things you do as a kid, who can go from point A to point B in the bunkers? And you never knew when you walked in the bunker that there's extra rooms in that bunker that you can probably get lost at. So we did it one time. And that was the last time I ever went in there. I went in there again one time during the daytime, and even the daytime was freaky. So I'm like, nope, not going back. And, within 10 years, they finally sealed those bunkers down to where nobody can go in anymore. So, but no.
No one can go in and no one can come out.
They're probably still there. They're still there.
Oh,
Man, this has been fun, man. I mean, yeah, we creeped ourselves out. Yeah, we, probably pissed our pants a little bit with some of the stories that we were told. But I'm going to go back to, I love hearing stories outside of San Francisco. You're telling the ghost stories about New York. You kept it to one area, man. The whole time you're telling the story, I swear to God, I'm thinking Sixth Sense. That's the apartment that I'm thinking of in Sixth Sense, because East Coast apartment, all that stuff. But man, just your experience alone in New York, man, that's in one area. Just imagine other parts of New York that's going through all this. It's like, if you guys live in New York, anybody, Woken Up Woke, you guys out there in the podcast, you guys have ghostly experience, man. Tell us, man. I'd be more than happy to hear your ghost story. And maybe the guys in New York can reach out to the family out there who's now in that apartment to see if they're having ghostly encounters.
Yeah, actually, I have some of my friends still live in the building next door, and I think his uncle may still live in the building, so I can always ask him, like, hey, you guys got any experiences over there? But part of me doesn't want to even know.
Well, they can tell me that I can tell you. It's like, no, I think that one moved when Joe and them moved. It's like, great.
Probably still with Joe.
Great. Oh man, all right, man. Another good segment, another good podcast. This has been fun. I don't know why it took us forever to talk about this. I mean, it's something we should have talked about in the beginning. So next week we'll either go with a part 2 or we'll do something totally different. We'll see towards the middle of the week to find out what that is. But for you guys who do listen, what the hell's a doe? Like Homer Simpson. For you guys who do listen, thank you for listening. Thank you for catching us on all the podcast platforms. If you guys watch us on YouTube, thank you for that as well. Subscribe to our channel. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to our podcast. I don't want to be that guy that says hit the notification bell, but man, hit that notification bell so when we come out with new content, you guys will hear the new content. And if you guys have topics you guys want us to talk about, whether it's hauntings, whether it's, something this and that, man, let us know. TheOrdinaryJoes@gmail.com, The Ordinary Joes Podcast @gmail.com. Email us there. Check us out on Instagram. There's a lot of ways you can get a hold of us, man. A lot of ways.
We're open to ideas, and we want to make you guys happy and entertained. So,
and we want to keep it. We want to keep it, where it's kind of one of those interactive kind of things.
Right.
See how it goes. See how that goes.
You guys part of the family.
You guys are a part. Casey King, we haven't heard from you in a while, so
yeah,
Casey, you want to give us a subject that we want to talk about? Knowing Casey's going to talk about the first video game that. No, just kidding, Casey. If you want to talk about that, we'll talk about that. You guys can talk about that. I won't. All right, guys. Until next week, thank you guys again for coming by. We are the Ordinary Joes.
Peace.
See ya.
Ordinary Joe's Podcast.